Yes.
Okay, well,
This is, you can introduce yourself, yes.
Small but select crowd. Probably most of you know me actually. My name is P.Murry. I'm Secretary of the Green Party Trade Union Group. I've been in the Green Party for almost 20 years, and I've been involved with the Trade Union Group since it started, which is about 10 years ago now. I'll cut what I was going to say a bit short, because I think most of you probably know a lot of the basic stuff about trade unions. I was going to do quite a lot of that because I often find people don't really, nowadays especially younger people, don't really know what they are in the way that they used to. They've declined considerably in terms of the numbers of people who belong to them. However, having said that, the TUC estimate that there are about 6 million or more people in unions which are in the TUC, plus there are 1 or 2 smaller unions that are not part of the TUC. And the TUC is Trade Union Congress, in case anybody didn't know. Now, the very basic thing about unions is that they are organisations of employees. They are created by employees. They are run by employees rather than management in most cases, although there are 1 or 2 staff associations, which I've just been looking at the New Statesman's list of trade unions that they produced for the TUC Congress this year, and in fact so there are 1 or 2 staff associations in the TUC. Anyway, be that as it may, the main purpose of a union is to defend and, if possible, improve the wages of their members and defend their, primarily, at least in the first case, their working conditions. So they are interested, for instance, in what hours members work. For instance, we're just seeing a huge dispute over the 24-hour tube. That is not so much about the actual hours as can people be compelled to work nights. That's that particular dispute. Working conditions broaden out from just things like hours. Obviously it means safety at work. One of the main contributions unions have made to some workplaces is they've made them a lot safer, and through working with governments in the past, it's unions who've been responsible for doing things like getting health and safety reps in workplaces and having health and safety checks. Some people say, oh, there's too much health and safety nowadays, but I don't think there is, and that's because once upon a time when I was young and stupid, I fell through a floor in a building site. So I know what an unsafe workplace is like, and I'm glad that I'm glad that they are, the regular ones are much safer now, and I think unions deserve to be thanked for that. Now, as well as being concerned about workers' conditions in the workplace, unions have, I think unions throughout the world have been interested in the general conditions of workers. Unions have been interested in things like education, health, the availability of free medical care, welfare in general, and have acted through, initially through having trade union MPs in Parliament, who then went on to form the Labour Party, through political representation, to try and get government legislation which improved the conditions of most people. I mean, I think the unions deserve credit for the creation, or deserve a large amount of credit for the creation of the welfare state, which sadly we're beginning to, well, we may be beginning to see the destruction of, although I hope that doesn't and with its agenda of the abolition of was it poverty, squalor, ignorance and disease, the four giants mentioned in the Beveridge report. Now, nowadays, I think you're beginning to get more and more an association with green politics, because to a lesser or greater extent, unions, I think, are realising that what is going to impact on the welfare of workers and indeed everybody are environmental issues. So now you get things like the TUC talking about what they call a just transition to a low carbon economy, by which they mean that instead of previous industrial transitions like the Industrial Revolutions of the 19th century, which were done in a completely free market, ruthless way, you know, if for instance, the handloom weavers, who are famous as being the Luddites, smashing up machinery, were thrown out of work. Their work was destroyed. They were replaced by unskilled factory labour, and it was a brutal transition. And there are many other occupations that have suffered that kind of fate. So the idea that the TUC is promoting is that we need to move to a low carbon economy, and that the move should be done in a way which is fair to workers, involves retraining workers, and so on. That is something the Green Party supports, and something the Green Party Trade Union Group supports. And there is another body I'd like to put in a plug for, which the Green Party is involved in, and that's called the Campaign Against Climate Change. The Campaign Against Climate Change has a trade union group, and they've produced a publication called 1 Million Climate Jobs. That is very, very well researched, you know, with proper academic research going into, you know, for instance, how many jobs could you create if you were to insulate every house in the country? How many jobs could you create, you know, if you started moving over to generation of renewable energy as opposed to fossil fuels and so forth? I mean, if anybody's interested, I've got a stock of those, but not with me tonight. So if you want to get one, just let me know and I'll get you one. So that is, I think, the association that there is between trade unions and the green movement, a concern, a recognition that the economy has to change. It can't go on in the current sort of exploitative fashion that it is at the moment. It has to stop, and there has to be a transition, but that transition has to show some respect for people's conditions, people's rights, and people's lives. Having said that, I'm not going to. It sounds like I'm bigging up. You know, I'm doing an advert for the TUC and saying they're wonderful. An advert for all unions. No, they're not. There are problems. From a Green Party point of view, the TUC, to my mind, and several unions, particularly the GMB and Prospect, are far too attached to the idea that if we bring in more nuclear power stations, we will then be able to reduce our dependence on fossil fuels, and so nukes will have a role in that particular vision of the just transition. But like many Greens, I feel they're just too dangerous, let alone expensive, for that to be a realistic proposition. There are other issues as well. I mean, at the recent TUC Congress, there were several speeches urging the reopening of coal mines, and although actually Jeremy Corbyn didn't apparently do that with the enthusiasm that some of his critics have said he did, there are unions who seem to be attached to that, but to my mind that's a sentimental attachment, and it's not a real possibility. Partly for the wrong reasons. There is so much cheaper coal that can be imported into the country still from places like Colombia and Eastern Europe that really British coal mines are, you can go down them for a museum visit now. They'll become theme parks if there are any left. Okay, I don't really think I've got very much else to add other than, one other thing just to mention is that the Green Party itself is building its links with trade unions through a system of what are called Trade Union Liaison Officers. We have our first Trade Union Liaison Officer on our executive GPEX, and we're also promoting, we being the Green Party Trade Union Group, promoting the idea that each local party and each region should have a trade union liaison officer working with things like trades councils in the area, with regional bodies, regional union bodies and so forth. I think after that I'm going to shut up, and if anybody's got any questions about it, ask me later.
Thank you, Pete. You've got to do with a monthly meeting. And,
oh yes, of course, the Green Party Trade Union Group meets monthly here. Our next meeting's, I think, the 7th of October, if I remember rightly. And as some of you may have noticed, we have stalls and fringe meetings at conference every year as well.
Which date did you say?
7th of October, here, at 7:30 in the evening. Is that right, Noel?
I'm ashamed that I haven't got it on my diary.
Well, I'm not going to turn my phone on, so.
Must find out because that clashes.
I think the idea is to take questions afterwards.
Yeah, we take questions.
All three.
Yeah,
so.
we can take. It's looking like there'll be a lot of combined because Elizabeth is interested in trade unions. Pete has just mentioned nuclear, and so there'll be a triangularization or whatever. In the questions after.
Mine's a point of information.
Yeah.
Our Green MEP is meeting with the ETUC, the European TUC, today in Paris, apparently. I think it's something to do with the government's plans for employment law.
Yeah.
Because she's on the employment committee.
Yeah, you reminded me of something that I had forgotten. Partly that Jean Lambert has a very good reputation with unions for her work with union rights in Europe, and secondly, for the first time we had a Green Party presence at the Trade Union Congress this year and a fringe meeting with Jean Lambert, Natalie Bennett, and a couple of Sally Hunt of the Youth Lecturers Union, and a lady called Cheryl Gedling of the PCS Union. And if you want to see that, go to the gptu blog, and there's a video of it there.
Thanks, Pete.
What was that? What blog?
gptu blog.
Green Party Trade Union blog.
Who were the people that met at the beginning? You said the person next to me said
Steve.
the people met, so it was.
That's Steve Lambert, who was talking about his wife.
Yeah.
The
You can ask him.
ETUC, I think he said, European Trade Union.
What was that?
Always got this one.
What was the four items you mentioned? Ignorance, poverty, something, and disease.
Squalor and disease. Squalor.
We'll get to all of them.
4 giants.
Right, next we have Dr. Elizabeth